Barcelona is preparing for a historic moment. Pope Leo XIV will visit the Basilica of Sagrada Familia and will celebrate Mass to mark the 100th anniversary of the death of Antoni Gaudí. He will become the third pontiff to enter the Basilica. Sagrada Familia is one of the most famous landmarks in Spain. And coming up, we meet with members of the church here in Barcelona, for whom the completion of the Basilica's tallest tower is a profoundly significant moment.
I think this is a wonderful moment for the city, because whether you like it or not, Barcelona's skyline has changed forever.
We walk the streets of one of Spain's largest cities, tracing the footsteps of the man who became known as God's architect.
We're in a place that was very dear to Gaudí. He came here every day.
And we discover how faith is intertwined with people's lives here in this incredible city.
At a time when things are difficult in Western Europe, this whole way of life, rooted in faith and pastoral ministry, continues to grow here.
This is Sagrada Familia, bridging heaven and earth. Visitors gaze upward in wonder inside the Basilica of the Sagrada Familia. Each year, more than 5 million people pass through its doors. They come from different countries, speak different languages, and bring different life stories, all drawn together in a place that continues to captivate the world. Standing more than 550 feet tall, the Tower of Jesus Christ crowns the Basilica of the Sagrada Familia, the church that will witness Pope Leo XIV's visit to Spain. The pontiff's visit to the Sagrada Familia is no coincidence. June 10th marks 100 years since the death of Antoni Gaudí, the architect who envisioned this temple and whose work has left an indelible mark on entire generations. To explore the church that will welcome the pontiff on this visit, we pass through the doors of the Sagrada Familia and make our way to the Juve railing. From here, the architect's models come to life, and you can see the columns that resemble trees in a stone forest and support the weight of the vault.
This is Gaudí's most important model. Standing exactly 5 meters high, it represented the Basilica's main interior space. This column would be this one, or this one. It branches out just like the model to support the side vaults and the central nave vaults, with all the weight transferred directly to the base.
Jordi Faulí has been the architect in charge of the temple's construction since 2012 and is now leading the final phase.
Our duty is to continue building the Basilica of the Sagrada Familia, faithfully following Antoni Gaudí's design. Here we see the entire church, the interior of the Basilica. This new church that Gaudí envisioned for the future, where a series of slanted tree-like columns rise upward to receive the light streaming in through the vaults and all the windows. Because the structure is integrated into the interior, specifically into the interior columns, it allows maximum light to enter through the large windows, as well as through the 300 skylights in the vaults. All of this is designed to draw our gaze upward, toward God.
What is so special about Antoni Gaudí's architecture?
The Sagrada Familia is the first and foremost an expression of Christian faith. Every element of the Sagrada Familia is an expression of faith. Each part has its own symbolism and theological significance. And Gaudí wanted those who saw the Sagrada Familia to understand the Christian faith, to deepen their relationship with God, and to feel welcomed and loved by God. Gaudí was searching for beauty. He wanted beauty to touch the hearts of all those who entered, regardless of their beliefs. And surely the interior and exterior have an impact on everyone in one way or another. Gaudí expresses the Christian faith and the history of salvation, not only through art, but also through architectural shapes. The Nativity facade differs from the Passion facade because the former expresses the joy of life, with all of nature rejoicing around the birth of Jesus. The Passion facade, with its tense slanted columns, conveys the anguish and pain of Christ's passion and death, as well as the inevitable suffering in life. For the facade of glory, Gaudí designed a monumental portico in front of the four towers, featuring a series of lanterns that resemble trumpets rising upward, increasing in size and ascending toward the central point to convey a sense of elevation toward God.
Do you believe that those who enter the Basilica inevitably pray? They're moved.
He wanted to move people, to move them as they viewed the facades, entering the interior and seeing these tree-like structures rising upward into the space of the Eucharistic celebration, and for all this beauty to touch everyone's heart so that they might reflect on the life of Christ and reflect on their own lives. And for this, to lead them to feel loved, welcomed, and willing to love others. Just imagine that Gaudí spent his last 12 or 14 years working exclusively on the Sagrada Familia, living in poverty, looking towards the future with hope and faith, designing the Sagrada Familia that would be built after his death. And one day, the Sagrada Familia will be completed. That day will come.
This is the city Pope Leo XIV will encounter during his visit. Barcelona, a city founded by the Romans and one that still thrives today as a major European metropolis whose lively cobblestone streets are the very same ones that Gaudí once rushed along. To better understand the Sagrada Familia, one must discover the architect who envisioned it. We follow the path he walked every day through the streets of Barcelona and meet with the architect and writer Chiara Curti.
There is something very special about Gaudí. Everyone who worked with him, his collaborators, whenever they write about his architecture, they cannot help but write about him as a person as well, suggesting that his architecture and his life were intimately intertwined. One of his disciples recalls that at one point Gaudí said it wasn't he who was building the Sagrada Familia, but rather that the Sagrada Familia was building him.
As a child, Antoni Gaudí suffered from a serious illness that made it difficult to walk. He spent many years at Mas de la Calderera, a family country house where one could witness the power of nature in its purest form.
We know that he couldn't play sports because of his illness, but he never saw this as a negative thing. Rather, he saw it as an opportunity to develop a deeper appreciation of nature. He called it attentive observation.
We make our way into Barcelona's Gothic quarter, towards St. Philip Neri Square. Surrounded by Renaissance buildings, a school, and a Baroque church that witnessed the Spanish Civil War. On the walls of the church, you can still see the impact marks from the shells fired during an attack in 1938. This small square, where today children leave school and tourists rest by the fountain, is one of the last neighborhoods Gaudí walked through before the tragic accident that took his life in June 1926.
We're in a place that was very dear to Gaudí. He came here every day. Gaudí was an avid walker. He walked over 6 miles every day. Gaudí didn't come here just to take a stroll, but to meet with his spiritual father every day. In fact, his trip covered practically the entire city, since he lived in Park Güell and walked all the way down to the Sagrada Familia. Gaudí was actually hit by 2 streetcars. In fact, as he swerved to avoid one, he fell under a second one coming from the opposite direction as he was leaving St. Philip Neri Church on his way to the Sagrada Familia.
Dirigiéndose a la Sagrada Familia.
Gaudí did not survive the accident and passed away at the age of 73. Although locals are proud of the Sagrada Familia now, that hasn't always been the case. Few people today are still alive to bear witness to the history and the obstacles this iconic site has faced. Father Luis Bonet is 94 years old and has spent most of his life at the Basilica. His father, Luis Bonet y Gaudí, was born in 1893 and was a Catalan architect and disciple of Gaudí, whom he met in 1914. Beginning in 1952, he worked on the construction of the expiatory temple of the Sagrada Familia and designed the Passion facade with its bell towers.
Mi hermano, el arquitecto.
Two of his sons carried on his legacy, one as an architect and the other one as the rector. We meet with the latter. The parish's previous rector recalls how his father entrusted him with the task of compiling a list of saints. The stained glass windows of the Basilica feature more than 750 names of shrines, saints, and holy cities from every continent. Bonet worked on the project alongside Joan Vilagrau, the artist who designed the stained glass windows. Father Bonet, you are 94 years old now, but you spent your childhood at the Sagrada Familia.
Well, my entire life, and I spent the last 35 years there as a parish priest.
Your brother and your dad worked in the Sagrada Familia.
All of my family was involved, and when even some people opposed its construction, everyone in my family agreed that it had to go forward. Later, I worked on the stained glass windows. That was my contribution as well. People are really amazed by them. They see how beautiful they are, especially in the afternoon. Light comes through the stained glass windows on the west during sunset. Since it's lower in the sky, the light comes in deeper. That creates a really beautiful effect. People are amazed by the colors.
You decided the phrases that we can read on the stained glass windows.
Yes, many of them. For example, what do you read here?
Fatima.
They're arranged so that the most beautiful ones are here. It looks really beautiful.
You were there at the Sagrada Familia when Pope Benedict XVI came.
I was always watching from behind. They told me, look, you're going to the ceremony, where the altar is sprinkled with water and the walls are too. Where the Pope also anoints the altar with holy oil, but they told me, you're going to bless the wall of the Passion of Christ. I was very happy to do so. Everywhere I've been happy to be there and to serve people. I've always been content, because once I've been somewhere, I never forget that place. I'm always with the people. I never say goodbye. I'll always love them. They're in my heart. I've known them well, and I'll keep them here with me. I remember them and pray for them.
Me acuerdo y rezo.
Faith in Barcelona is not only found in its magnificent basilica, but also in the parishes of its busiest neighborhoods, like this one. We visited the parish of San Miguel de Sants in the Sant Montjuïc district to get a sense of the local church and spoke with a parish priest who leads a youth group.
This parish is located in a very cosmopolitan neighborhood with a large population, and we minister many families. To be honest, I think it's a vibrant parish, many young people, and we're seeing a certain revival of the faith. Our world is fast-paced and often feels empty, and that is why we see a need for a sense of community. There's a bit of a stereotype out there that young people today aren't interested in the church. But in my experience, that's not the case. I mean, I've seen hundreds of young people come to church with lots of questions, searching for something they can't find. Most of the people who come to church today are those who have searched the world and haven't found what they're looking for. They haven't found themselves, or they feel a deep emptiness, or they've tried everything and in the end haven't found what their hearts were seeking. So what I've observed is that today in the Church of Barcelona, there are many young people whose parents don't go to church, whereas they do. So there's a real challenge here. It's a young church, but we'd say it's a minority in terms of the number of young people there. But when these young people discover the faith, they become very apostolic in their social circles, at college and at work, and they want their friends to meet the one who has changed their lives. I think it's a very hopeful time for the church in Barcelona.
It was a wonderful experience because I was welcomed so warmly here at the parish, and they helped me through my conversion process. Now I'm helping out here with various projects, including catechesis and university student groups. We have a lot of them here, and I'm very happy to be able to help and to live out my faith as part of a community. I was full of questions, and what the world had to say, the way of life the world offered, didn't convince me, so I started searching on my own. I also found many people preaching online who helped clarify a lot of things. The church is the path to heaven. I believe it is the path that Christ has left for us here on earth. It's the fast track to the right way to live life, to live joyfully and bear fruit here in the world.
This past year, a group of us college students have been meeting on Thursdays for adoration. We listen to talks and testimonies. Honestly, it's a place where you can take a break from the week, where we're a group of people who share the same desire, ultimately the same concerns, and who share the same daily university life. Perhaps not living in such a Christian environment makes you appreciate when you have friends who share the same ideals, goals, and faith. It is something wonderful and leads to very deep friendships.
I first became interested about 2 or 3 years ago. I started attending a Protestant church, and a little over a year ago, I began to explore the subject a bit more and do some research. I looked into the Church Fathers, Catholic ideas and dogmas, the Eucharist, and I found it all incredibly fascinating.
Do you think the Sagrada Familia is a witness of faith in the country?
Well, the Sagrada Familia is increasingly becoming something of an icon. And of course, now that the cross will be blessed, we find that suddenly all of Barcelona, if it so chooses, can look up and see that there's a cross there, a cross that's illuminated day and night. The relationship between Barcelona and the Sagrada Familia is a bit of a love-hate relationship. At first, there was great fascination, but there was also constant criticism. People would say, well, what's the point of that? What is it for? And in fact, it was thought that it would never be finished. Then there was a boom, especially after Pope Benedict's visit. And so now Barcelona and the Sagrada Familia are explicably linked. But that wasn't always the case. But another path has also been set into motion, the canonization of Antoni Gaudí. Of course, he is not only a brilliant architect, but also a genius saint. There haven't been many like him in history. A brilliant man with an impressive personality and dazzling creativity. Meeting Jesus changed his life and transformed his work from something done for himself and his ego into a service to God. Only a saint could say that and live by it. But I believe that we now have a duty as a Church of Barcelona to deepen our understanding of his spirituality, to learn about the story of his faith, his conversion, and his spiritual journey, for perhaps one day he will be Saint Antoni Gaudí.
Antoni Gaudí, que a lo mejor un día será San Antonio Gaudí.
In Barcelona, a city that for decades saw its churches standing empty, something is changing. According to the Archdiocese of Barcelona, attendance at Mass among young people has doubled since 2020. And here, in the shadow of a basilica that has been under construction for more than a century, a young church is slowly reinventing itself. we return to the Sagrada Familia to discover its most sacred space.
The crypt is the heart of Sagrada Familia. It was the first part of the Basilica to be built. Here, Mass is celebrated in different languages, and today it is filled with the voices of students from the Tarragona Conservatory of Music.
In the crypt, we meet with the rector of the Basilica, who is also the parish priest of this church.
Here, we must combine the more immediate responsibilities of the parish with an openness not only to the city and the diocese, but also to the entire world as an international sanctuary. And so we must bring these two dimensions together, which is not always easy, but we try to turn this difficulty into an opportunity. The opportunity for the parish community to be a welcoming home to all those passing through as tourists or pilgrims, and at the same time, for this international dimension to enrich Sagrada Familia. Even in these difficult times in Western Europe, our life of faith and pastoral ministry here continues to grow.
We are standing in the crypt of the Sagrada Familia, where we have an image of the Annunciation, but we also have the remains of Gaudí. Why is this important?
Gaudí was not the first architect of the Sagrada Familia. The diocesan architect at the time had designed a neo-Gothic church and begun construction, but after a year, there was friction between the architect and the Association of Devotees of St. Joseph, which was behind the project, and the architect walked out, so they had to find a replacement. They approached a young man who was only 31 years old and had been practicing architecture for just 4 years. And that is how Gaudí joined the Sagrada Familia. He continued the work and completed it. The crypt where he is buried retains this neo-Gothic style, though he added his own touches, making it taller so that light would enter from all sides and incorporating elements of his more modernist style. He saw it completed, and after finishing the crypt, he continued with the apse and the nativity facade. The fact that Gaudí is buried here is significant because, in fact, this is his masterpiece. In fact, he devoted more than 40 years to Sagrada Familia, from the age of 31 until his death at 74. Building this church made Gaudí increasingly like a man of the church, so that he devoted himself more and more intensely to the construction of the Sagrada Familia. In fact, for the last 14 years of his life, he devoted himself to it exclusively. At the same time, he did not merely dedicate himself to the construction. Rather, the process itself transformed him into a man who lived his faith with greater intensity.
Pope Leo XIV will visit the Sagrada Familia. What impact do you think this will have, not only in the parish life, but in whole Barcelona?
We believe that Pope Leo's visit to Barcelona to bless the Tower of Jesus Christ at the top of the Sagrada Familia, which makes it the tallest church in the world, represents a sense of continuity. Following Pope Benedict XVI's visit to consecrate it, Pope Benedict understood that the Sagrada Familia was a masterpiece, a work of art embodying what has traditionally been called the path of beauty leading to God. And indeed, this is what we experience. It is one of the great miracles we witness every day. Upon entering the Sagrada Familia, people gasp in awe at such beauty, and after gasping, they end up opening their hearts, no matter how close they may be, to the author of this beauty. And I believe that Pope Leo XIV understands this reality, and that is why he believes it is worth his while to come and dedicate it personally. I am sure it will help bring to fruition what Gaudí intended by building a church with such a tall tower. He did not want to break any records. His intention wasn't to be the greatest, but rather he wanted to reflect how in some way this basilica unites heaven and earth and invites us to lift our gaze toward the cross, to rise up and look toward Jesus Christ, who through his cross has opened the gates of heaven for us. Even when the construction was barely beginning, Gaudí already said that someday people would come from all over the world, and that's become a reality. We see it every day. There are countless testimonies from people who hadn't gone to confession in years and years, and yet Sagrada Familia has touched their hearts and brought them back to faith.
Y las ha devuelto, ¿no?, al camino de la fe.
In a modern, diverse, and international city, all it takes is to look up to discover a new angle of the Sagrada Familia. The inauguration of the Tower of Jesus Christ, visible from different points across the city, will make the Pope's visit a moment rich in symbolism. And as preparations continue for the papal visit, the Basilica's current chief architect is struck by the view from the Juve railing.
This is one of the Sagrada Familia's most beautiful features. The sight of its facades is deeply moving and prompts one to reflect on one's own life through the lens of the history of salvation, whatever one's belief may be. Then, upon entering the interior, one is once again captivated by the space filled with light, where the structures rise upward. What Gaudí really wanted was for visitors, when they saw the Sagrada Familia from the outside or stepped inside, to be spiritually uplifted, and he said so himself.
Se elevase espiritualmente, lo decía.
As evening falls over Barcelona, the Basilica of the Sagrada Familia closes its doors once again, preparing to welcome the millions of pilgrims that will cross its stone threshold, a place that bears witness to history and to the Christian tradition. In Barcelona, Paola Flynn, EWTN News.